Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of the Modern Farming Podcast, brought to you by the Green Gene Foundation, where we are always cultivating agricultural excellence.
We're your hosts, Chris and Tara, and together we're growing knowledge in the world that feeds us.
Yes, we are, and we got a special episode today, Tara. I'm going to let you introduce our guest, but he's been around on podcasts quite a bit. In fact, I think we said he's got more podcasts than you and I have combined. So he's a familiar face, but today he's our guest, and he's going to tell his story about his trade. And I'm really excited because Brad has really been he's been a pillar of the Green Gene Foundation. He's been with you guys, I think, for a long time. So I'd like to hear you go ahead, Tara, and introduce Mr. Brad because I know he's been part of it longer than I have. So.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'd love to introduce Brad Turner with Sand to Soil Services. Brad has been with Green Genes right from the beginning, and I would love for him to tell his story. Brad?
Hey, great to be with y'all. And it's been fun working with Matt and all of y'all, helping with some of the school stuff. But today, I guess to know what I do today at 62 years of age as an ag consultant, starting as just a citrus grower, really 50 years ago. From the time I was a kid, I was hoeing orange trees and working in the family groves. I was a fourth generation citrus grower, raised cattle. As I grew up, went to college at Southern, majored in citrus, and started a citrus nursery business, worked for Likes Brothers, managing for a large company, started a caretaking business in the 90s and did that. So I've kind of worn all the hats in citrus. But as this disease of greening took hold of citrus about 15 years ago and trees started declining pretty badly, I was just about out of business. I was standing in a grove that I was managing that was dying essentially. You know, I was doing everything I could do to save it, and I was looking across the fence into a forest, and there's trees that have been there. I've seen them my whole life and never really paid much attention, but they were perfectly healthy. And so as I'm looking at these trees, I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm doing everything I can to save this grove, and it's dying, and these trees look great, healthy fruit. So that's when I started studying soil. So this was about 8 or 9 years ago. So I just dug into YouTubes and reading books, started doing some traveling, going to conferences. But what got me into this was I met a guy named Ed James who had a citrus grower like me. His grove was dying, and he started planting cover crops in this grove. Was going to push the trees and just grow something else. Well, the trees started rejuvenating, and we'll dig into this later, but it told me that biology and carbon essentially has something to do with growing good crops, and that's why we're having issues in growing citrus. So from that point, I was out of farming completely at the time. I was on my way out. So I bought a 5-acre parcel of land, and I started doing my own research and trials and experimentation with all facets of soil health. So I did that for about 5 years. And then through that, there were some articles written about me, and I wrote some articles. And so people just started coming to me and asking me questions about what and why and how. So that just kind of evolved into, I started a company, Sand to Soil Services. So we look at it's soil health, essentially. It's regenerative agriculture, but the focus is on the health of the soil, and that leads to good plant health. So it's me. I'm the owner. I have 3 consultants that help me and work with me from other parts of the country. There's growers and ranchers, and one of them's a plant pathologist also, and biochemist. So I have lots of help to help me make consulting decisions when I need. So that's just kind of how I evolved into what I do now, which is just helping growers grow better crops.
And I just love the name because the way it infers, you've got sand, which is fairly, fairly fallow for people who are trying to grow things in pure sand. And he's take it to soil, which is obviously people recognize it's useful for growing. So that really sums up what you do, right, Brad? That's you're looking at making good soil out of something that's average or below.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know how I came up with that name. I did, but once I learned that in soil you have sand, clay, and silt. Well, in Florida, at least the southern half of Florida, there's hardly any clay, and that's what holds some nutrients. So the only thing other than clay that can hold, say, cations is organic material, organic matter. So if in Florida, if you have sand and you don't have any carbon, you cannot hold on to any nutrient. So that's just kind of how that play on the words kind of came about.
So is that where you went into the different aspects of the regenerative soil health with say composting or something like that?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, when I was doing my experiments and trials and research on the 5 acres, my passion is cover crops. Oh, but all aspects of, we've had on the podcast, we've had people that talk about compost, we've had people that talk about inoculums and biostimulants, earthworm teas. Oh, we've had some fertility people on, and so I look at all those different aspects. It's not just one thing that fixes soil. Oh, it's quite a few things, and if you can just kind of do a little bit of all of those and just and stay with it, it's not something that happens overnight. I mean, soil health is, we've kind of degraded soils over decades and decades, and the farmers know. I mean, they know that there's things we do with tillage and herbicides that break down carbon, dissipate carbon, and they know we need it. Science just didn't realize until relatively recently that you can bring back carbon into soil faster than we thought we could. It doesn't take centuries or decades. There's things you can do to speed up the process. And now we really understand how important carbon in biology is to the chemistry part of farming. It's a huge factor. It's not just chemistry. And so that's what I deal with: the carbon, the living fraction, the carbon, the food for the biology in the soil, and how do we make all this work so at the end of the season the farmer still makes a profit.
And you just pretty much hit on what regenerative farming is and how it differs from just plain old classic fertilize your crops farming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no rules. The way I look at it is, I think what I've said a few times is, if you got to take a step backwards, try to take 2 steps forwards. So if you've got to do something, that's causing a problem, try to do something to counteract that. So whether that's another dose of compost or another cover crop planting, because most of these, there's very few people that just step off the cliff. I have had a few that just go cold turkey, but most of them almost have to transition. It depends on the crop and how bad a shape you are, but for the most part, it's a transitional thing. And some people never get away from some pesticides. But as you do some of these things for soil or for bringing in more beneficial insects, just naturally you'll be able to use less aggressive fertility and less pesticides and less herbicides. It just happens. So it's not something that happens overnight or something you can just buy in a bag. It's a process, but it's well worth the effort. And growers are starting to realize it and better understand it.
So your clientele with your sand to soil services is mostly large corporations that have larger farms?
Yeah, it is mostly larger farms. I mean, some 20-acre groves. I work with a 2,000-acre row crop farmer. I work with some sod and some grass. So that's fun and interesting. Got a client that likes to grow cover crops in sod production, which that's unheard of. But He's done some trials and experimentation with that and shown some really interesting things. So, but yeah, and I work with some, gardeners. I have a garden, and it's all very similar. It's just for the gardener, you're not too worried about the cost per acre, because if you have a 1,000 square foot garden in your side yard, you don't really care if you put $10 worth of compost on it or 75, if 75 is going to do that much better. But for the conventional farmer, then you're talking about the difference in $300 per acre to $1,500 per acre, and he can't afford $1,500 in his fertility budget for a heavy compost application. So it's all relative. It's just in the smaller world, we just want to grow good food in a garden, whatever it takes to do it. In the conventional world, at the end of the year, he has to show a profit.
Right.
Mostly large growers.
So you've got quite a few clients. You said in many different areas. Do you pretty much follow this kind of the same plan as you consult with them? You have your typical, high level. This is how I approach my business.
Yeah, there's kind of, I call it 7 kind of factors where I say it's not just one thing, and so we're always thinking about all those things. How they're implemented could be different. So in a perennial system, like a tree crop system or blueberries, where there's a crop there year round, we may be trying to keep a cover crop system in there continually as ground cover, and what we'll go into what they do. Where in a row cropping system, he may only be able to put a cover crop in his fallow season, or may be able to do some intercropping, putting down the middles. So that changes, but the actual what we focus on as far as the whole system is pretty much the same, and we'll talk about that today, I'm sure.
For sure.
So I know you've touched on regenerative agriculture and how it's in the large farmers. Would a backyard gardener use much cover crop?
Yeah, I've done a lot of crazy things. When I did my 5-acre research, I kind of call it a chaos garden. So I would put vegetable seeds mixed in with my cover crop seed and just let it go out. So I might have 100 different seeds, cover crops, and so all those are interacting within each other, helping each other, waking up different microbial populations. You can't do that in a commercial world because of harvesting issues, but I do that a lot in my own garden. Sometimes I decide to put things in rows, but for sure, when you're in your garden, if you're not growing a crop, say in the heat of summer, 100% you need to have a cover crop growing on. Even if just the weeds take it over, it's better to grow a desired cover crop because they do specific things. But that's one of the main points in regenerative agriculture or soil health, is just keeping that soil covered and a living root in it as much of the year as possible. And that's key. Just keeping that soil cool and keeping a living root in it as often as possible, which is what cover crops will help with.
Nice. So I think it would be good. So this is a perfect time that this podcast has taken place, because we've had just a bunch of really sharp, interesting people in their areas of expertise come on and talk to us. And you've been a part of a lot of those conversations, and as if Tara and I. But usually when we get folks, we get their thing that they're doing, compost or water management or whatever it is. And you get their focus. So we have, at this juncture, we've got you, Brad, that you're running a service that takes into account all of this interesting stuff that Green Gene has given out and that's out there. So I'm really excited because you've kind of got your, like you said, your 7 ideas or your 7 steps, whatever you want to call them. And I think it would be great to kind of touch on those in this podcast to kind of give people an understanding of where all of this interesting info and interesting process and method kind of fits into something that is active, right? Is happening. So I think your first thing is kind of compost and mulch. We've had a lot of compost type people. Steve Saw was on talking about his ways of doing things. Biochar. We've had some biochar people. So what do you look at when you're looking at things like compost, mulch, biochar?
Yeah, well, there's compost. You're putting mulch, biochar. That's carbon. So you're putting carbon into the system. One thing about carbon, I mean, even a diamond is carbon, but that's not going to feed a microbe or give it a place to live. So, but you have stable carbon and you have labile carbon or available carbon. So in compost, you have both. You're going to have carbon that the microbes can't readily eat at the moment, but they can use it as a place to live, essentially. The microbes are eventually going to break it down. There's going to be certain biology. There's certain kinds of fungi, certain kinds of bacteria that are decomposers that break down stable carbon or unavailable carbon. Another good thing about carbon mulch, not so much biochar. Biochar is great for holding. It's very porous. It holds a lot of water, nooks and crannies, things can get into. Compost, you're going to have biology and carbon. With compost and mulch, you're also going to have nutrition. So you got to put a lot of compost to replace a fertility program. But when I grow a cover crop to put carbon into a system, I'm not bringing in any fertility. I'm just recycling fertility that's already there. Where when you're doing compost and mulch, you're adding a lot of organic material, which is going to raise organic matter over time, and you're bringing in fertility, and then it is food for microbes. Some of it's available right now, and some of it's available later. But compost, mulches are great if you use it as a ground cover to keep the soil cool, and then over time, biology is breaking that down and doing nutrient cycling and feeding it to your crop. So compost is one of the main ones. And we've had a lot of people on that deal in the carbon side of soil health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've just been learning about that. I know with the TerraChar, Phil Bloom really informed me more about how that was such an important aspect. And I hadn't heard that yet. So I was very excited to learn about that.
Yeah, no, I don't do a lot with biochar. I've known about it from, I guess I've been in this now almost 9 years, and I did use a little bit in the beginning. I just don't know a lot about it. I think it can get a little expensive, but it's there for a long time, and it has great nutrient and water holding capacities. Like I said, I'm just not sure of the cost. There's some mineral stuff, components out there that do similar things, but they're not carbon based. Zeolite is one that I've worked with. It's more of a mineral, but it's got all the pores and it can hold a lot of nutrients. And that's another one. But yeah, compost is, most people just think of compost when they think of soil health. We're just going to do what we've been doing. We're just going to put out some compost and turn it in, and they're good. And that's a wonderful thing. But there's some citrus growers that have been on pretty decent compost program, and they're doing good things. They're not digging themselves out of the hole. They're not doing enough. It's just, that's why I say it's not just one thing. As we talk about some of these different things, I have clients that are doing one or two of this one or one or two of that one. Not many citrus growers are doing everything, but I have some farmers that are kind of adapting to the system. And but even when you're just doing one or two, good things happen. We see it. It just, to really fire off the system, you kind of need to be looking at all the aspects. Where like the next one I would go into is cover crops, which is the one that's near and dear to my heart. And for that, like I said, it's really the cheapest way to get carbon into the system, because you're taking a little seed that probably costs you fraction of a cent, and then that is turning into all this biomass above ground, and then all this biomass below ground that is turning into carbon and food for biology. You're also building structures with the root system, pore spaces. Every plant is putting out a different root exudate, even through its stages of root development. So that plant knows what biology it needs to summon a specific microbe to get a specific nutrient that that plant needs. And so that they're putting out all these organic acids and amino acids and B vitamins, all these compounds to attract a specific biology to give them something to eat. So when we put in a diverse or a multi-species cover crop into a farming system, we're doing a lot of different things. We're summoning all these different forms of biology, because we as humans, we're trying to learn, we're trying to understand what every plant needs, nutrient wise, biologically, but we really don't. So I just focus on getting the diversity out there and let God and nature sort it out.
That's funny.
And then
Tara,
beneficial insects that come with, when you plant 5 or 6 different cover crops in a farming system, you're attracting all the beneficial biology, bacteria, fungi, insects. And if you get enough of the good guys, they do a pretty good job of out competing the bad guys.
So Tara, I think we need to have Brad talk a little bit about cover crops in a single subject podcast, because I don't think people cover that enough. They don't cover cover crops enough. I'd like to learn more about it, and I think we haven't had a whole lot on that yet. So
Yes.
We should probably think about that, because it sounds like, Brad, you have a formula that you've worked years on, straightening it out and knowing what to do with what. I wouldn't know where to start, right? I wouldn't know what kind of cover crops to put.
Yeah, that's the one that's kind of my passion. So yeah, we could do an hour and a half on that and make it really fun and interesting. So
Cool.
We'll plan on that for maybe the next one.
Okay. What else we got? You talk about inoculants as another aspect. You look at inoculants for the crops.
Is that for the crops or for the soil, the inoculants? I mean, because I heard soil health a lot, but is it for the actual plants?
Yeah, it's really both. And they're kind of one and the same. People may look at them different. When I say inoculum, I'm really thinking about where you're making like a vermicompost or a vermicompost tea.
A worm tea.
Yeah, like when you had Sam on the other day. That was
Yes.
very interesting. So I'm thinking more about the microbes themselves. And then when I say biostimulants, I'm thinking more about the food for the biology. A lot of people just say biostimulants is just that's whether it's the bugs or the microbes or the food. It's just kind of all in the same. But I look at biostimulants as the food, and that's really what's so important. I mean, you're getting the best way to feed soil biology is with a living root, bar none. And I sell bionutritional fertilizers. I sell biostimulants, inoculants. I sell those things. But the best way to feed soil and feed soil microbes is with a living root, and a diverse living root is just going to wake up more in different biology. But in the short run, because sometimes cover crops are hard to get established, in the short run, I always say microbes eat first. Microbes are what naturally feeds your plant by mineralizing nutrients or solubilizing nutrients. And it's a symbiotic thing where the root feeds the microbe and the microbe feeds the plant. But they have to eat first. They're not going to help your plant until they're fat and happy. So sometimes there's just not enough carbon, labile carbon, available carbon in the soil to satisfy them. So that's when you can use, I used to use a lot of fish and kelp. I used to use a lot of molasses, simple sugars, organic acids. So a lot of times that just is to help jumpstart the system. That's something some of it's even done foliarly, but most of it's just put on the soil. And that's just to help feed your soil biology, or in the case of an inoculant, a bugs in a jug type product where it's a task specific form of bacillus or trichoderma or a mycorrhizal fungi or something that has a specific job that you can put out there, and it may be short-lived. They may just give you that, they may perform that task you need them to do, but if there's not food there for them to eat, they can't survive. So there's, and then sometimes we're putting microbes that aren't native. Will they survive? We don't really know if they can continue to survive. The good thing is even if they die, they're a metabolite. They're food for other microbes. So I think a lot of these things, these microbial products, they go out, they're doing their job, they're fixing, feed and doing, and then a lot of them are dying off. But then they're getting picked up as food by the native species, and then they do their job. So they all have their place.
Interesting.
But microbes have to eat. If they're not, that's what all this is about. I mean, it's building carbon levels up so the microbes can eat it, so they can do their work, and then we need more carbon, whether it's from plants, plant root exudates, or adding carbon. They have to have it. And that's just what, agriculture over the last 80 or 100 years. I mean, cultivation has been around, biblical times. We've always cultivated soil, and that goes into the next one. I mean, that's a biological disturbance. Today we think about it more when we herbicide, but when we till soil, we slash and dash fungal organisms, which are the most fragile, and they have their long hyphae that are reaching out, and then we chop them up, and then they got to rebuild. When we cultivate, we're blowing off carbon. We're letting heat get in. We're oxidizing. So biological disturbances that's one of the biggest ones in my business, where I can convince a citrus grower, and citrus is just my passion because that's what I've done, and that's what I went into originally. But where I get a citrus grower to switch from say a glyphosate or a glufosinate to another herbicide that I've done enough research and trial to know that it's easy on the soil biology. If I can get them to make that switch, and a lot of times it's hard because usually they don't work as well to kill the weed, but those guys that I get to switch, if they've done nothing else, just minimize that disturbance, I see the fruit doesn't fall off the tree that year, and the year before it did, and that's all they did. That was just one component. So that's that cultivation and herbicide is a big deal in the world of soil health.
So you also have listed mineral balance. So that's probably important. We're talking, micronutrient type minerals and trace minerals and things like that. Or are you talking NPK?
Really all, and it really gets. I mean, and it's more than just in the soil. I mean, when I first got into this, and I was reading all the books about Neil Kinsey and calcium to magnesium ratios, phosphorus to zinc ratios, and those are all a real thing. In sandy soils, it's not near as important as the balance, is just to make sure that you have enough of that nutrition there in a certain parts per million or pounds per acre. But the ratios, the balance even goes into the tissue. I mean, the same ratios that apply, all minerals are either an antagonist to other ones, or they're synergist with other ones, and they need to be in a certain reasonable ratio for all that to kind of work that way. So when you're looking at your soil test, you're kind of looking at those ratios. In tissue, what I've learned just in the past 3 or 4 years is those ratios work the same way. You could do a tissue test or a sap analysis, and you could have if certain ratios, say phosphorus to zinc, are out of whack, one affects the other. So sometimes I work with a tissue test now that gives me these integrated ratios, and that you look at the sufficiency levels of how much we think it should be in the plant, and they look pretty good. But when you look over at the balance side, you get one particular thing out of balance, and it might knock 3 or 4 more out of whack. So you could just add a little bit of zinc or molybdenum or boron, and it could fix 2 or 3 other nutrients. and I kind of went down a rabbit hole, but that's something we've never really talked about in conventional ag. I mean, 9 years ago, I didn't know what a microbe was, and I didn't care about fertilizer. When I needed to fertilize, I just called up my fertilizer salesman, told him to come pull a soil test and tell me what to put, and I bought it and put it out, and that was it. But the balance and the knowing, you know, just knowing that balance is a big deal. And then I guess that went right into, testing, because
Yeah. Yeah, I think testing was one of the next things I was going to ask you about, because you said how important it is, and like you said, have we been testing our soils and our microbiome in the soils for many years, or is it something rather new?
No, we were testing once a year. It would come out, and it was mainly just to tell you what your pH was and how much lime you needed to put, or sulfur or whatever, depending on what your pH was. And we did look at some micronutrient levels and some phosphorus and potassium levels, but today it's different. Now there's all kinds of soil testing. I always want a chemistry test, whether that's a Malic, but you need to know your NP and K, your pH, your calcium. You need to know all those levels. But now we're able to test, on the microbial side. So they can do respiration testing. So you can see if your soil's breathing and at what level. That kind of gives you an indicator of how much biology is in your soil. Now the up and coming technology is genomic testing, DNA testing. I was just on a conversation about that this morning. That's where it's going. They can see what pathways in the plant and in the soil are opening to know that the calcium pathway is open or the potassium pathway is open, and it's all related to a biological aspect. So the testing is, and then tissue is just like a blood test, just like you go to the doctor, he tell you to go draw blood and come back and see me. It's the same thing. He's going to say, hey, you need to be taking more of this vitamin or that. Well, that's what I do. You're dragging in zinc. You're dragging in this. You got too much of this. And that's how you dial it in. Focus on the carbon, the biology, but then don't take chemistry out of the equation. That's huge. There's some people that say if your biology's good enough and your carbon's good enough, you don't have to fertilize. And there are some parts of the country where that's the Shenandoah Valley. I mean, there's some places not in Florida that is possible. In Florida sand, we can't hold on to anything. So you've got to make sure, your fertility is there, nitrogen. We'd love to get all of it from the atmosphere. That's where the atmosphere is 70-something% nitrogen, and we do it with cover crops. But to get enough to feed a crop, you usually are going to have to add some. It just depends back to balance. The form that it's in is important. Some forms are hard on soil biology, knocks the daylights out of them. Some of them aren't so bad. And the timing. Certain times of the year, when you're in the reproductive phase of a plant, there's certain forms you don't want to use. In the summertime, when it's in the growth phase, you can use a little nitrate and not do any harm. So regenerative agriculture is not about what you can't do. That's kind of more what organic farming is. They have rules for what you cannot do. I try to tell you what you need to do and what you can do. And if it breaks some of the organic rules, it really doesn't matter to me. Like I say, the end goal is just for the grower I'm working with to make his soil better and still make money at the end of the year.
When we first started with our orange trees, we did a genomic soil test with someone who's near and dear to the podcast. That was our first time we met Nick. Nick Castro. So he came out and did that, and I was blown away with the data you got.
I had forgotten that biomakers test is that's where the technology's going.
Yeah, it was amazing to me, because we knew about testing your soil for pH and this and that. That's pretty basic cool stuff. But when he showed us, he talked to us about it, and then we've sent away in the end. It wasn't cheap, right? That's probably why people
Yeah.
don't do it all the time. But we want to do it one time. We actually had our land we believed was farmed for many, many years, and we thought we had some good soil. You could see it. It was black dirt. It wasn't sand. It was sandy black dirt. So we wanted to know, and the test did come back with some interesting and good results. But that was our first introduction to testing, and we did it. We just happened to find through our NRCS, we found Nick, and so that was our first time we met him. But I'm 100%, because what's crazy, and Nick understood it better than us, and you probably would too, Brad, because that's your guys' job. But it didn't just tell you, what your soil was like, right? It told you what your plants were doing, what it needed, how much, where to add it, the whole thing, the guesswork completely out of what, and you could do it as much or as little as you want, but you're going to get the results that the test says, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're all about.
Yeah, and it would show you pathogens. I mean, it would show you black rot or phytophthora or things. Get ready for this. This is probably going to rear its ugly head.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, it's you went straight from the basic to the top of the line. You passed the stuff in the middle, the Haney tests which are all great tests. Oh, but there's so many out there, and we just use them as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
If you can show an increase or that getting better, because you've spent this, you've bought these inputs, you've put the compost, you've done the cover cropping, as long as the crop is getting better along with it, that's how we show, hey, you're moving the needle, and that's, farmers love to see that.
Absolutely.
Show them why. That's where I am. I need to know why, how.
Well, and that's how you get people to believe in what you're doing, right? You got to have results. Otherwise, it's just a theory until you show them the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and we were doing this, 100 years ago. I went out and picked up 100-year-old citrus books from the University of Florida, and they talked about cover cropping and mulch, and they were dragging mucks out of the bottoms of rivers and creeks and lakes and putting it on their grove and growing cover crops on a different piece of land and mowing it off and spreading it on the ground. Oh, we just got away from, we did mainstream simplicity. Labor is not 50 cents an hour anymore. I used to hoe orange trees. Well, I used to do it for nothing when I was real young, but we had to mainstream. And so that's when we brought in, herbicides. And I'm not anti anything. I was a caretaker for 30 years. I've applied tanker loads of glyphosate. Oh, I just have learned in the last 8 years, there's some repercussions for that. And agriculture is starting to pay the price for some of that.
You're anti overdoing it, is what you're saying.
Yes.
That's what I keep hearing too, is about the moderation of things that, it's the large amounts of things that we're doing in any part of this that's overkill, and that we can do it in different levels and get a better result from what I'm hearing as a layman.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we love to just quit, herbiciding, but back to just the citrus, because that's what I am. And that's what I've focused on a lot. And that's the industry that we're losing. I believe it's because of, I've been saying it for years. We finally got a disease that we can't spray our way out of or genetic our way out of. I think this one is where we really have to look hard at how we've changed our management practices over my lifetime. I mean, when I was a boy, we had a few hundred acres scattered over a couple counties, and we had to travel and pull the disc or the mower, but we weren't herbiciding yet. We didn't have irrigation yet. We essentially were cover cropping. I didn't even realize it. We'd let the weeds get 8-10 foot high, and we might get around 2 or 3 times a year to go try to knock them down with a chopper or a disc, and insects just everywhere. And we just got away from that. And we started getting more and more diseases, things. I can reflect back 50 years and look at even my records over 50 years from farming. and I can see where the diseases just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And we just thought that's just the way it was. But I really believe it was just our soil has been slowly dying over the last half a century. And we finally got a disease that isn't going to put up with it anymore. It's not going to let us grow that way anymore. Oh, so we just got to start putting carbon and biology back in the soil. And now ag is just starting to understand how important biology is to chemistry. Oh, oh, it takes the biology to process the nutrition to feed it to the plant. Oh,
To me, it just makes good common sense that if a plant's a living thing, just like a person or an animal, if you're a person who only eats candy and fast food,
yeah,
and a strong virus comes through or a strong, bacterial disease, you're going to have a hard time fighting it. You're going to get sick, as opposed to the person who eats, square meals,
yeah,
drinks orange juice. They're going to fight it off a lot better. And it only makes sense that that's what a plant is, right? If they're just eating junk food fertilizer, it only lasts them enough to grow whatever they're growing. They're going to be weak, right?
yeah,
And like you said, the mother of all diseases came through for oranges, and they could not put up with it.
yeah. Yeah, no, and we'll dig into that, in future podcasts where we can have one on, on microbial food, biostimulants, and
Yep.
and talk about that. Oh, foliar nutrition. We didn't mention that one. That's
Oh yeah,
that's
that's
what in the beginning I used to say I called it a crutch because to me it wasn't fixing soil. It was just we could, even if we took a test, we knew we needed zinc and manganese and boron, so we'd apply that, and that was just to get it into the plant to help it do its thing because it wasn't getting it from the soil. But what I learned in the last few years uh, is that when we do that, that your crop, if it's just a monoculture crop, uh, if that crop is not firing on all cylinders, has everything it needs, it's not putting out root exudates to summon and feed microbes to bring it nutrition. Oh, like a citrus tree. When they're struggling just to live, that tree is going to be holding in all those uh, components that it wants to put out to signal biology, but it can't because it needs it just not to die. So when we spray foliar nutrition, kind of as a crutch, but to get that tree functioning better because we're not getting it from the soil right now. If we can get that up to a point, then it can start putting out its root exudates to summon the biology it needs for whatever nutrition it needs. It's said that they can put out up to 40% of their energy pumped into the soil to do nothing but feed biology so that it can feed itself. So it's a chicken and the egg thing. How do you get your tree healthy enough without healthy soil? The tree could do it on its own. If you could just have a perfectly healthy tree in a monoculture system and keep it that way, it could sustain itself. It could pump out enough carbon into the soil and its rhizosphere area to bring up what it needs. But you got to have a healthy soil first for the
yeah.
most. So that's where foliar nutrition, where I used to say it's a crutch, it's really not, because if you get it to pump more into the soil, it's going to be bringing more out.
I think it's a tool in the toolbox, right?
Yeah,
It can't be a
they
solution, but it
all
certainly help, right?
So, as we're talking about the soil health, how does it actually intersect with today's agriculture and the health of what we're getting, the value that we're getting from the plants as humans?
Yeah, you can't really have a healthy crop or a nutrient dense crop without healthy soil. Uh, a hydroponic uh, plant is good, uh, but I think without soil, you can't replicate soil in an artificial environment. So you need soil, healthy soil, to grow what I consider a nutrient dense crop, and that's kind of what's told on us. We've I'm 62, and even me knowing what I know today, I really didn't notice that the quality of tomatoes where it's gone to from 50 years ago to today, because it took so long for it to happen. Tomatoes just are you got to go, you got to have a home garden tomato where we're doing composting and other things to get a really sweet tomato. And that's just where it has evolved to. So soil health is going to equate directly to the quality of the of the food. Right now, the grower doesn't really get paid for quality. Some do. In citrus and juice, he is getting paid by the bricks, which is nutrient density, which is the quality. But most crops are paid by the box, the pound, the bushel, and until they get paid for the quality, or we have a way, the consumer has a way to measure that in the store, which is coming. Oh, that's what will drive, uh, you know,
A change.
a change.
A change. That's what we're looking to drive.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Growers kind of get it, but yeah,
Now
no,
you
100%.
you had a guest that was really into that, measuring that, right? And he was working on a tool or something that could help you with nutrient density checking. Wasn't there a guest on at one point?
Yeah, we had Dan Kittredge. I had not met Dan, but I knew who he was, and he knew of me. But yes, we had him on as a guest, and he's a very smart guy, good consultant. But he's been on this quest for nutrient density in our food for over a decade. But yeah, he started working on some technology where, and you can go back and find that podcast. But he started working on some technology where it can measure not just a beam of light, essentially, that not just measures the minerals, it it measures phytochemicals and B vitamins and all these things that really define nutrient density. And he says it takes about $1 or $2 million per crop to develop, that. So it comes down to money. Did some stuff with carrots and blueberries. He just did cattle. Kind of went with cattle because they're eating forage, which kind of all relates. And now he's on to wheat. But the technology, it may be 5 years, it may be 10 years. But yes, we've talked about this. We talked about it some with Steve. But yeah, when that is to the point where the consumer can go in with, say, their cell phone and shoot a beam of light into 3 different carrots and get 3 different numbered values of the quality or the nutrient density, then we don't have to do this anymore, because whoever's got the best carrot is doing some of these things I'm talking about, and the guy that's growing the worst carrot is going to go talk to that guy and figure out how to do it. And then it's game on.
Why Toyotas are still around and Yugos aren't, right?
What's that?
It's why Toyotas are still around and Yugos aren't.
Right.
Quality. And so we're at this kind of, it's really interesting if you step back just from to be a regular person and not an ag person. We're at this kind of crux where, if you're pushing down from the top, the consumers are going to want better stuff. And you're starting to get this movement of this, kind of soil regenerative. Yes, you can make better stuff if you follow these guidelines. You've got some, right now anyway, some government push to make all this kind of happen. It's kind of like a nice little cycle we've got going, that, maybe some things can really change and happen. That'd be great to see.
Yeah. And science is really understanding it better and can explain it better. And so, yeah, I mean, we have plenty of topics for upcoming podcasts.
Yeah, we could probably go into each one of your steps, right, and do a thing of each one. So Tara, we should look into that for the schedule. Is Brad deep diving into some of these topics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I think it would be beneficial to everybody because it's putting the tools we need in our boxes so that when we start doing it, whether it be the home garden or the large growers, to have that knowledge. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, home garden is your number one wellness tool. I mean, if you can't grow everything, that's seasonal, you can't. But anything you can, even if you're just growing your own herbs, in an herb garden. But yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, we could have a whole topic on regenerative versus organic and have that conversation uh, for an hour because a lot of people don't understand. Consumers don't understand what is regenerative. That is a hard one to understand, but and organic too.
Yeah, I get a lot of people that come up to us in the farmers market and they'll say, "Are these organic?" And it's like I almost want to ask them, "Do you know what that even means, or did someone just tell you organic's better?" Right? Because
Right,
I bet you a good chunk of the people just think it's better, right? And
right.
so they're turned on to it, and they really don't understand the background behind it. And so I think that would be interesting. It'd be really interesting to folks that are not that are just doing that, right? To say, um, oh, and then make your decision, right? Oh, I think organic is really the way to go. Or, it'd be nice if a lot of people came away with, I can do better myself. I'd like to try that. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's a tomato plant in a bucket, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take some of this methodology and I don't even need to be buying organic. I'm growing natural food and that's good enough for me, right?
Right,
That'd be
right.
really
And I think since COVID, we've really had a big push on backyard gardens, and just the amount of children that are being pulled from public school and homeschooled, and a lot of those parents that are looking into that education for their kids and and nutrition for their kids. I mean, it goes further than education, that they're looking to expose them to different things. I think the market is definitely primed for
Mm-hmm.
learning how the food that we're growing is going to increase our health. Um, and food is medicine. You hear that a lot, and I think that it comes back to the soil health, and I'm so interested in learning more about it.
Yeah, yeah. There is a lot of interest everywhere, and I've got to be careful, talking about food, uh, because there's some not good things going on in the world of our food.
yeah. And
And
for a
but the key is if just focusing on the nutrient density, if the farmers somehow getting compensated for that, that's a big deal. Like I said, it takes a while. You don't buy soil health in a bag, and it takes some time to make things start working. But once we get there, it's cheaper, it's better. It's when I go to a grower, I don't say a thing about the environment or the health of his children. I just talk about making him a better crop and making him as much or more money. Oh, nobody loses in this world of regenerative agriculture or soil health. Everybody, the environment wins. Everybody's a winner. I mean, yes, when things are really firing on all cylinders, you're able to use less fertilizer over time. You're able to use less pesticides over time because you don't have to. So yeah, the fertilizer companies and chemical companies, they'll sell less, but we still have to have fertility, and there's always going to be need for a tool once in a while from a pesticide side. Not necessarily always, but sometimes, and that's okay. In my world, that's okay, as long as we're continually growing a better, healthier crop and better food, and
Yes,
still making a profit. The grower,
yes.
because he's
yeah.
not in. He loves to do it, but he's not in it for fun. I can
But
promise you that. I've done it my whole life.
right. Well, and like you said at the starting, and you said it on other podcasts with me, Brad, and with others too, is farmers are concerned as much, if not more than everybody, about the life, the health of their ground, of their soil, of their
Sure.
crops. They just, again, they can't you can't gold plate everything, right?
Right.
You have to turn a profit, and that's the that's the work that has to be done, right? Guys like you
Yeah.
are doing. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. yeah, the farmer doesn't want to. He's not putting too much fertilizer. He wants to put the least he has to just to grow the crop. So, where I fit in is the carbon side, which we can help sequester, the forms. And so there's a lot of tricks and there's a lot of nuances, but, yeah, the farmer just he wants to grow good food, and they are growing good food. They're doing it the way the way we were taught. This is how we grow food. If we're a row cropper, we go plow the field, we put in the seed, we do the best fertility practices that we know. And if something gets on it and tries to eat it, we kill it. And then hopefully at the end of the year, we pick it and we're able to, feed our wife and family.
Yeah. Yeah. But if there's a better way or a more interesting way or whatever, let's get it out there and see how we can make it work. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely coming, and it's going to be exciting times, I think.
Cool. Well, I think we're about out of time. I think we've kind of stated it here. Coming soon or coming in the future, some more of Brad and his methodology and some of the good information you've gathered and the knowledge you've gained, which is super valuable to everybody and everything in the podcast world and otherwise. I'm so excited about that. But for now, I think we're gonna call this one a wrap. It's been great talking to you again, Brad. I hope everybody out there enjoyed the podcast. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening to Modern Farming. Be sure to follow us, like us, and share, and join us again as we grow in the knowledge of the world that feeds us.
Thank you, Brad. It was great to see you again.
Thank y'all. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you.